Thanks for coming back. You're watching Holy Land Uncovered. I'm Tal Heinrich. We want to continue our discussion on influential women in the Old and New Testament, and we'll do so with two prominent women who we're honored to have in the studio with us today. Jennifer Reeston from the Magdala Institute and Rabbi Stacy Blank from the Movement of Reform and Progressive Judaism. You know, being a woman that practices faith is not something, I guess, that we can take for granted, not even in 2017 in the male-dominated religious world. Where do we see women leading in this area, women breaking that glass ceiling, if we can call it this way?
Yeah, well, I can see, well, definitely I can speak from my faith community. I see a lot of interesting initiatives happening. I was just reading recently about a group of women getting together, many leaders already within the Catholic Church, to talk about a theology of women. So this is an exciting initiative. Saw an initiative also recently with the Voice of Faith organization, actually meeting in the Vatican, getting together international women from all over, and talking about, you know, what are the possibilities, what are the avenues. So I see a lot of creative initiatives coming out. To be able to enter into leadership roles and servant leadership roles in the church.
Stacy, so women have played a major role, we can say, not only as wife, you know, being a wife or being a mother, but also as being a leader. And yet, when we're talking about the religious world, women have somehow remained inferior to men. Why is that, you think?
I think it's a learning curve. I think that we're still in a time of...
Interesting definition.
of exposure. If you look at the 2,000-year history of the rabbinate, per se, and that women have been ordained for the past 50 years, it's still something relatively new. And you see how I'm dressed. You see that I perhaps break some stereotypes.
And you are a rabbi.
I am a rabbi. I break stereotypes. So what do you think a rabbi might look like? I'm not wearing my black hat or my...
What does it take to be one, a female rabbi?
What does it take to be? It's study. It's years of study and practice and perhaps some talents. But, you know, what is the essence of being a rabbi? It's being a teacher. It's being a leader. And a lot of what I think as a woman, first of all, when I stand up there as a woman and say I am a rabbi, that's a statement.
But I guess your position is somewhat unrecognized by many in the Jewish world.
It could be. In Israel, you could say it's particularly challenging. In the United States, it's very widespread at this point. But you see more and more women are coming to the field. And again, I see as with exposure that more and more people accept it.
Who are the strong female figures that young Jewish and Christian girls maybe can look up to and be inspired by when reading the Holy Scriptures?
Well, I can think of two, one from the Christian scriptures, the New Testament, and one from the Hebrew scriptures. Mary Magdalene, of course, maybe I'm a little biased, living and helping out in the Project of Magdala, but she's definitely an icon of hope, somebody who's overcome enslavement, you could say, and then she becomes this, as the church has termed her, the apostle to the apostles, so she's a leader of leaders. And the other one, I would say, at least for me, it's been Queen Esther in the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures. I see a woman who's courageous, she's sagacious, she finds a way not to spurn the weakness of man, the king, but she finds a way very subtly and prudently to save her people, as well as save face for the king and raise him up and make him the man that he's supposed to be. So I admire both of them.
Now it's your turn.
Okay, my list is long. If we'll go with Esther, I'll continue with Miriam. If we're taking someone from the Bible, from the Tanakh, that someone who was determined, who stood up, who was brave, who saved her brother and wasn't afraid to dance, also enjoy before her people when they left Egypt in freedom and crossed the Red Sea, a prophetess, the keeper of the water.
It's an interesting choice, I gotta say. You know, Miriam is not one of the most prominent female figures in the Bible. She's like a sidekick to Moses, maybe, and yet you're choosing her. That's amazing.
The Midrash talks a lot about her as well. Yeah.
I guess. So in both traditional Judaism and Christianity, do you think that the role of women has been quite maybe misinterpreted?
Definitely. I wonder many times if we just haven't educated ourselves about how influential women have been in history, or put the spotlight on them. When I think about the Catholic Church, sometimes I realize, you know, the Catholic Church wouldn't be what it is today without many influential women. I mean, you think of the greatest 20th century humanitarian figure that we have that most of the world knows, a Mother Teresa, for example. I don't know if you know of a 19th century 24-year-old that was actually ill, died at the age of 24, but she wrote a simple book. She wrote several letters, and now she's called a doctor of the church for the actual spirituality that she developed that thousands of people follow. A middle-aged woman who was illiterate in the 13th century, and she was able to tell a weak king to get his act together and rule. And she avoided a great schism in the church. That was Catherine of Siena. So I think we need to educate people and put the spotlight on all that positive thing to encourage other women to do the same.
Learning curve, right, as you called it before. Where lies the difference between these two religions, Judaism and Christianity, if we try to compare the role of women?
I think it's an interesting question. I think it depends
on the progress that women have made
which part
throughout
of
the years.
Christianity that you're talking about.
It's a broad spectrum.
Exactly. I think that what is wonderful is when we meet as women leaders from the different faiths, and that we can come together on a lot of topics in a different way that men can come together on. And as we see a lot of women's dialogue happens in a different way than men, and there's a lot of work that we can do together to promote peace, let's say, and promote understanding, interfaith dialogue, and so on.
Where do you think that women can succeed maybe better than men? It's a question that I'm asking all of my guests today.
Yeah. That's a very interesting question. Where do they succeed? I think women have a tremendous capacity to harmonize, which would be, you do see a lot of initiatives coming out by women for peace. Also, we're more relational. We have this capacity to bridge a gap that could be there. That maybe you could say the warmness of the heart, the tenderness that a woman can have can somehow break down boundaries. So I think that's
So politics, Stacey?
I think women, I don't want to be too stereotypical, but women tend to come together and seek groups and support and want to work together. And perhaps that could be a place to start. Absolutely.
So we talked about female rabbis. What about female priests?
Well, what about female priests? That's like asking the question, can apples be oranges? But I think you have to understand what a priest is, in the Catholic Church anyways. It's, first of all, it's a call from God. It's not a profession that, like a flavor of lollipops, which one do I want? It's something that they experience God's call. And second of all, it's a service. It's not a position of power or prestige. And it's a sacrificial giving of oneself for the salvation of others. That's what, in the essence, what it is. So what we have in the Catholic Church is something called the common priesthood that's available to all men and women. It's not the ordained ministerial priesthood, which is very specific. But if you want to be a priest in the Catholic Church, just die to yourself and your ego. That's what it takes.
And before we wrap it up, I would like to ask you, who has been your personal female inspiration? Each should choose one.
Yeah.
I would have to say that one of, if I'm just pulling here, is Rivka in the Bible, because she was one who came of her own initiative.
We have to be very brief. And
Mary Magdalene.
Thank you so much for this, Jennifer, Stacey. It's been a pleasure. And now we're taking a short break here, but don't go anywhere, because next we'll take a tour on Mount Tabor, following Deborah, one of the most influential women of all times.